Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Before the formal graduation ceremonies begin, can I extend a warm welcome to you all on behalf of us at the Cathedral. A particular welcome to those who are about to receive degrees this afternoon and you, their guests. Some of you may be familiar with the building, but if I could just say a brief word about the Cathedral and its significance before the ceremonies begin. It took 5 years to build this cathedral from 1962 to 67, and although it still looks relatively new, it's over 50 years old, and during that time has become a place that's very familiar with the people of Liverpool, a popular symbol of Liverpool, and also a place that people have come to love and respect. The cathedral is the principal church for the Catholic Diocese of Liverpool and the local northwest regions. And it's called the Metropolitan Cathedral because it's the seat of the Catholic Archbishop for the north of England. So we gathered here in this wonderful space, along with our sister cathedral down the road on Hope Street. The two buildings are clear symbols of the importance of faith within this city. Here we've had a long association with Hope University over the years, and we're very pleased to be able to host all these different graduation ceremonies over this week. So I hope you enjoy the ceremony this afternoon. I wish just to congratulate those who are receiving degrees. It's the fruit of lots of hard work and educational achievement. So I offer my congratulations to those who are receiving degrees this afternoon. Thank you.
If you're able, would you please stand for prayer? Let us pray. God of wisdom, fill us with the truth that sets us free. God of joy, accept our gratitude, praise, and wonder. God of new beginnings, encourage those who graduate today in their next step along life's way. God of truth, freedom, and love, inspire our celebration. Bless those who have achieved so much and send us out to serve your kingdom in the world. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
I declare open this congregation for the conferment of degrees. Please sit. It is my pleasure to welcome you all today to this graduation ceremony. It's a joy and a privilege to be here. We've had a tough time, a very tough time personally, in families, in our communities, in our country, and the whole world. We seem to be making our way through it. It's more important now that we come together and rejoice in the achievements of people who have carried on their studying. When we thank them for their work, we thank the staff who have helped them and taught them for keeping going. We're going to award a lot of research degrees today, finishing off a PhD thesis, finishing off the research, especially if it involves talking to, doing surveys of people, things like that, has been very difficult. It's even more admirable now that these students have come through and are going to get their degrees. So let's enjoy this ceremony, enjoy being together. Thank you.
How nice to see you all here in this wonderful place. This place that is open for worship now for over 50 years. During these graduations this week, over 8 ceremonies, almost 3,000 will receive their degrees. And this afternoon, an honorary doctorate will be conferred on a very special leader and man and great friend of this university. He'll be introduced to you in a moment. We wondered until just a few weeks ago whether this is going to be possible. And here we are, thankful that we can be together, as the Chancellor says, you and your families and your supporters. So welcome everybody, and thank you to all who supported our students over these years. What an incredible time this has been. It didn't take an atom bomb or hurricanes and earthquakes, but an invisible virus to stop the world. All universities everywhere have had to find new ways to teach and to research and to ensure their students get to this very point we've reached today, to graduate with a degree of quality. It has not been easy for staff. It certainly hasn't been easy for students. Students all over the world had to continue their studies amidst many challenges and many problems and difficulties. So let me tell you about a student called Isaac, who may have had a worse time than some of us have had during the pandemic or this pandemic. It's a story of hope, because it's a story of how someone facing so many hurdles can still succeed. Isaac's father died 2 months before he was born. His mother remarried when he was 3 years old. His stepfather seems to have taken an instant dislike to him, and then took his mother off to a neighboring village, leaving Isaac to live alone with his grandmother. And so a 3-year-old was effectively abandoned. Then, when his stepfather died a few years later, Isaac's mother came back to their original home. One of the first things she did was to take him out of school, and so he became a farmhand, working the farm even before his teenage years. Eventually, Isaac did return to school, and after what must have been difficult years, he was finally old enough to go to college, even though he didn't do very well at school. And although she had the means, his mother refused to pay that little extra fee so that he could live in better lodgings. But despite the setback, Isaac began a fairly happy life of learning away from home. But then the pandemic struck, and as a result, he, like many of you, have had to return home where you were under quarantine. The R number in his area was very high, so he isolated for a full year. This was a difficult time for him, without computers or online resources, no access to books or the library. And even worse, when he returned to college after the year, there was another spike in infections, and he was forced to get back home and quarantined for yet another year. Now, you may be wondering how that account can be factually correct, because it didn't quite chime with our experiences during the lockdowns we've had to go through. But the pandemic I'm referring to is not COVID-19, but it is the bubonic plague of the 17th century. And the year I'm referring to is 1665. The college that Isaac went to was Trinity College, one of the Cambridge colleges. And Isaac, what became of him? Well, you probably heard of Isaac Newton, Sir Isaac Newton. The exact dates of his work are not completely certain, but listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. It was roughly during the pandemic years that Isaac Newton developed his theory of gravity, the 3 laws of motion, and calculus. So, students graduating today, what do we make of this? No previous graduates have had to do what you've done, unless we go back to the war years when our lecturers and students went off to battle and many of them died. The resilience of that time can only be matched by the stories of previous pandemics going back further in time. These are the kinds of challenges that try the soul. These are the real tests of our strength and whether we are truly resilient. It is in adversity that we discover our best ideas. Difficult times can make us better. It can help us think new thoughts, try new ways of living, and make better use of the time we let slip in good times. So we mustn't feel sorry for ourselves. And when you feel that things are stacked against you and life seems unfair, remember Isaac. Whatever subject you've read or discipline you've studied, this degree will stand you in good stead in ways we can't imagine now. It may help you fulfill your childhood dream, but it may even help you achieve something that no child can imagine. But if your degree is going to be worth anything, think about how we may use this learning to serve others. Whatever your job, whatever your vocation or calling, we must strive to make our society and our world better. That is the duty of all educated people. This is not a gift for ourselves. Education is a gift for others. Know that your university is proud of you. know that it will always be your alma mater, which in Latin means your nurturing mother. You can always come back home to it. That's why from today you remain for the rest of your life the alumni of the university. Go out and make our world a better place. Thank you.
Chancellor, by virtue of a joint mandate of the Senate and Council of the University, the Reverend Canon Dr. Sir Ralph Waller is to be conferred with the degree of Doctor of Education honoris causa of the University. Sir Ralph was born in Lincolnshire and educated at the Universities of London and Nottingham. He holds degrees in theology, a Bachelor of Divinity, a Master's degree, and a Doctor of Philosophy. He also holds a Master of Arts degree from the University of Oxford. From 1988 to 2018, a period of some 30 years, Sir Ralph was principal of Harris Manchester College in Oxford. When Sir Ralph took up the principalship of Harris Manchester, although the college was in Oxford, it was not part of the University of Oxford. And it was under his leadership that the transition to the status of an Oxford college was brought about. There are, of course, many colleges of the University of Oxford, but Harris Manchester is unique in its long tradition of providing opportunities for mature students. Speaking of his own work, Sir Ralph has commented that one of the things we have tried to do with Harris Manchester College is to provide opportunities for mature students and often to give people a second chance who have missed out on higher education. In this regard, Sir Ralph is a kindred spirit. For at Liverpool Hope too, we place great emphasis upon the making available higher education opportunities to all, including those coming to university later in life. It was in recognition of his services to education, and in particular his work at Harris Manchester, that Sir Ralph was knighted in the Queen's Birthday Honours List in 2018. Sir Ralph is director of the Farmington Institute in Oxford, which was founded to support and encourage and improve Christian education in schools, colleges, and universities. Liverpool Hope has been privileged to host and mentor a number of Farmington Fellows over the last several years and looks forward to a continuation of this work. Sir Ralph served as Pro-Vice-Chancellor of the University of Oxford from 2010 until 2018. He is a British Methodist minister and the Macwilliams Fellow in Divinity in the University of Wales Trinity St David. He is a trustee of several charitable trusts, including the Calisher Trust, the Westminster College Trust, and the St Benet's Hall Trust. He is also Vice Chair of Governors of Harris Westminster Sixth Form Academy. He is an ecumenical canon of Christ Church Cathedral, Oxford. I thus present to you this distinguished man for the admission to the degree of Doctor of Education, honoris causa, in this university.
By virtue of my authority as Chancellor, and on behalf of the Senate and the Council of the University, I confer upon you, Sir Ralph Waller, the degree of Doctor of Education, honoris causa, of this university.
Chancellor, Vice-Chancellor, Provost, Dean, fellow academics, graduates and parents and friends. It's a huge privilege to be back in this wonderful city where nearly 50 years ago I was ordained. And I want to thank you for this great honour. I've long admired the Vice-Chancellor and his colleagues, the teaching and research of this splendid university. Noel Coward once said, "There are three great things in life: good books, good friends, and good plumbing." Well, I'm sure at Hope you had all three, where in my college I think we only had the books and friends, and I remember students complaining about getting hot water out of both taps. All of us who have been awarded or about to be awarded degrees here in this ceremony would do well to remember the words of Sir William Osler, the father of modern medicine at Oxford. In his published lectures to his medical students, given over 100 years ago, he tells them to think of their graduation as the start of their studies and not the end. He commends the aged doctors of France with their white hair, who mingle with those who are just beginning in the profession. He tells his students to take up new studies, new interests, take every precaution against arrested intellectual development, and his great watchword is "go on learning," and so must we. Yesterday, I was in Westminster Abbey for the unveiling of a plaque commemorating Sir Roger Bannister. And the older ones of us here will remember that he was the first man to run a mile in under 4 minutes. Many people got those figures mixed up, and in fact, he said some of his friends thought that he'd run 4 miles in a minute, and they still weren't very impressed. In fact, his granddaughter later went to school and said, "My grandpa ran a mile in 4 seconds, which was really good going. But he was a great example of someone who went on learning. He became a doctor and a famous neurologist. He was fascinated by the fact that the brain was so clever, it could examine itself. and he went on and discovered new neurological diseases and how to treat them. And if you talk to him, he always wanted to talk about you, to find out what you knew, because he was someone who wanted to go on learning. And this university stands for lifelong learning. But it also stands and knows the secret of education, which is discerning encouragement. Most people can do better than ever they realize with a bit of encouragement from others. There is plenty of discouragement in this world. I read some time ago of the manager of Peterborough United, not the present one, but a previous one. When they got to the semi-final of the League Cup, he said to his players, "I want you to play your hearts out today, because if we win, we'll get a lot of money, and then we can buy some better players next year." Augustus Sabater stood on the steps of the Sorbonne at his graduation, and the great Renan put his hand on his shoulder, and he said to him, one day you will write the greatest life of St. Francis of Assisi." And that was the encouragement which kept him going through all the years of toil until the book was finished. I feel fortunate to having received this degree when I know how hard you've worked for yours. I feel moved to be here at this graduation and in part of this wonderful university of which we all feel very proud. And those who receive degrees today, I think there are 4 things that we can do which would help the university. We can talk up the university. We can let others know this opportunity exists. We can keep in touch with the university. And if we have some good fortune, I'm sure the university would always be pleased if we wanted to share it with them. But at the end of the day, we can leave the university a legacy when we die, and that will ensure that the work of this splendid university goes on for generations to come. Thank you for this wonderful honour and for the privilege of being with you today. Thank you.
Names of the people who are being awarded PhDs and then other degrees. Usually they get doffed with the doffing cap. Unfortunately, I can't doff them, but I will offer them the doffing cap and they can consider themselves truly doffed.
The university's Service and Leadership Award is offered as an extracurricular program involving service-based experiences, development of leadership potential, and the equipping of students for a career in a rapidly changing world. A number of students graduating today have achieved the Service and Leadership Award. Please join me in a round of applause to celebrate their success. Chancellor, in the name of the Senate, I present to you for admission to the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in this university the following candidates.
By virtue of the authority invested in me, I admit them to the degree of Doctor of Philosophy in this university.
Kate Mooney, title of thesis, The Effects of Protein Supplementation Alone and in Combination with Exercise Training on Musculoskeletal Strength and Functioning, Cardiometabolic Health and Nutritional Status in Older Adults. Primary Supervisor, Associate Professor Farzad Amira Abdulyan. People are living longer than ever before. However, this is often accompanied with a range of adverse health outcomes. Despite this, exercise and diet have been shown to prevent or even reverse many chronic health conditions. After 16 weeks of protein shakes and gym sessions, the findings of this study revealed that combining exercise and protein can improve government recommendations, did not improve body composition, strength, or markers of cardiometabolic health, such as cholesterol or blood pressure. These findings highlight the importance of exercise in supporting healthy aging. Chancellor, I present to you Kate Mooney. Luke O'Brien, title of the thesis, The Physical Demands and Nutritional Requirements of Gaelic Football Training and Match Play. Primary Supervisor, Associate Professor Farzad Amar Abdulyan. This thesis identified the current dietary and training practices of elite Gaelic footballers. Training days and the days leading up to competition are of concern, and players not altering energy or carbohydrate intake to combat increased energy cost of training and maximize glycogen stores. This thesis also quantified the running performance and metabolic demands of simulated Gaelic football match play under different carbohydrate conditions. Physical performance during Gaelic football match play can be improved when dietary carbohydrate intake is sufficient to support high rates of carbohydrate utilization. Chancellor, I present to you Luke O'Brien. Aisha Aizaz, title of thesis, religion and consumer involvement in purchasing non-meat foods, a comparative study on Muslims and non-Muslims in the United Kingdom. Primary Supervisor, Dr. Asad Galib. Literature on religion and consumer behavior has been slow, and existing works often ignore intracultural religious differences in buying and consumption behaviors, especially in multicultural contexts. Researchers recognized that the food decision-making process differs between Muslim and non-Muslim faiths, but both groups were not examined and compared in the same study before. The purpose of this study was to quantitatively examine religion's role in consumer involvement when buying convenience foods in the UK. Findings show significant differences between religious and religiosity groups in shopping and involvement behaviors. Additionally, more nuanced variations were found in the purchase behaviors of Muslim clusters. Chancellor, I present to you Aisha Aizaz. Tamir Salim, title of thesis, Measuring Sustainable Development in Muslim Countries, Maqasid al-Sharia Perspective. Primary Supervisor, Gerardo Gerardi. Although there are many indicators and indices developed by different international bodies, none of them thus far presents an Islamic focus using an authentic and coherent Islamic methodology to reflect the Islamic Sharia perspective on development. This thesis assesses development in Muslim countries using a novel methodology founded on the objectives or maqasid of Islamic Sharia to develop two new indices, the Islamic Development Index or IDI, which measures the development or performance of these countries, and the Maqasid Fulfillment Index or MFI, which measures the extent of their fulfillment at the basic necessities level of their citizens, both from the Maqasid al-Sharia perspective. Chancellor, I present to you Tamir Salim. Nina Worthington. Title of thesis, what are the lived experiences of theater practice Nina Worthington. Title of thesis, what are the lived experiences of theater practice and disability among professional directors and actors in theater funded by Arts Council England, an interpretative phenomenological analysis. Primary Supervisor, Professor David Bolt. Drawing on the critical knowledge of disability studies and considering emerging considering emerging theatre practice from phenomenological perspective, this thesis sought to understand why directors and actors are choosing to or not to work together, facilitate open sharing of experience of theatre and disability, and motivate policy based on real-life practice and long-term change. Interviews were carried out with actors who self-define as disabled people and directors identifying as non-disabled. Data revealed what is happening when a shift from the outside in the Arts Council's diversity strategy impacts an inside-out view of intrapersonal and interpersonal process of engagement with the disability in theatre. This gave rise to complex and entirely personal responses reflected in the emergent themes concerning identity, inexperience of disability, authenticity, disability consciousness, caution and confidence, and casting. A synthesis of findings led to the proposal of stages in a process of engagement with theatre practice and disability for actors and directors, which captures steps towards routine and accurate on-stage representation of disabled people. Chancellor, I present to you Nina Worthington. Tobbe Norway's title of thesis, Living with My Absent Father, a memoir of Bill Norway's, 1918 to 1986. Primary Supervisor, Dr. Elizabeth Jane Burnett. This thesis is a memoir of Bill Norway's, 1918 to 1986, who during World War II spent over 3 years as a Japanese prisoner of war in the Far East, and despite great hardship, survived the war. This thesis brings to light Bill's unpublished artwork and photographs from the prison camps and includes a critical commentary on the creative work. Post-war letters were discovered between England and Japan, revealing the unlikely friendship between Bill and a former Japanese prisoner guard. Tobbe's research follows Bill's wartime journey to Singapore, Thailand, and finally Japan itself, where he locates the family of the Japanese guard. Chancellor, I present to you Tobbe Norway's. Alexandra Lotari. Title of thesis, São Miguel, Azores, Changing Characteristics of Seismic and Volcanic Vulnerability and Resilience. Primary Supervisor, Professor David Chester. São Miguel is the biggest island of the Azores archipelago and is home to 140,000 people. São Miguel's current population has never experienced strong volcanic eruptions or earthquakes. Nevertheless, between the 15th and the 21st centuries, the literature records 12 earthquakes and 14 volcanic eruptions. This thesis investigated the past impacts of extreme natural events and the implications for the current level of vulnerability and resilience within the community. Results show an overall increase of resilience, decrease of vulnerability in some aspects of the society, but not in all, and suggest the collaboration between scientific and government entities may increase the possibility of constructing a resilient São Miguel. Chancellor, I present to you Alexandra Lotari. Shreya Sahgal. Title of thesis, Analysis of Spiral and Scroll Waves using Co-Moving Frame of Reference. Primary Supervisor, Dr. Andrew Fawkes. Spiral or 2D and scroll or 3D waves occur naturally in physical, chemical, and biological systems. The dynamics of these waves are observed through either the tip of the spiral wave or the filament of scroll waves. The focus of this thesis was to study the transition from a rigidly rotating to an enduring spiral wave using Fitzhugh-Nagumo model in a co-moving frame of reference. Analysis resulted in the discovery of subcritical half bifurcation within the model, the first important discovery of its kind. The study was then extended to scroll waves and to create a novel method of pinning a filament without using any perturbations. The work from this study has allowed us to compute simulations of scroll wave faster than previous methods by using a smaller domain. Chancellor, I present to you Shreya Sahgal. Richard Tyler. Title of thesis, Monitoring the Training Process in Academic Rugby Players. Primary supervisors, Dr. Lorraine Woodfield and Dr. Ibrahim Akubat. This thesis makes a significant contribution to our current knowledge base and practice by establishing the suitability of commonly used measures of training stress and workload to inform the training process with a special reference to fitness and fatigue in rugby union players. The thesis identified key heart-based training load measurements related to fitness and how, in combination with micro electromechanical systems or MEMS devices, could inform of fatigue status. The work also highlighted the complexity of the fatigue response and makes recommendations for future studies in the area. Chancellor, I present to you Richard Tyler. Hannah Doherty. Title of thesis, The Development of Recent Roman Catholic Thinking. How can authentic Catholic views engage valiantly with the wider debate on the future of reproductive medicine? Primary supervisors, Dr. Agnita Sutton and Dr. Keith Chappell. Since the development of the distinct discipline of bioethics, there has been the need for an authentic Roman Catholic voice to counterbalance the dominance of the secular principalism model. It is proposed in this thesis that the Roman Catholic intrinsic consequentialism model provides significant scope for dialogue within an environment of developing knowledge, particularly in the field of reproductive medicine. Differences between the models studied are highlighted by the use of fictional case studies relating to contraception, selective abortion, and medically assisted reproduction. The intrinsic consequentialism model is found to be of special value in future debate concerning how new developments in science and technology of reproductive medicine can benefit. Chancellor, I present to you Hannah Doherty. Chancellor, in the name of the Senate, I present to you for admission to the degree of Doctor of Education in this university the following candidates.
By virtue of the authority invested in me, I admit them to the degree of Doctor of Education in this university.
Sinead Burns Cameron. Title of thesis, The Impact of Setting in Comparison to Mixed Ability Grouping in Primary Mathematics upon Pupils' Mathematical Attainment and Mathematical Self-Perception. Primary Supervisor, Dr. Namrata Rao. This research investigates whether setting or mixed ability grouping for mathematics lessons is more advantageous to mathematical attainment and mathematical self-perception of 8 and 9-year-old pupils. This thesis investigated the impact of both groupings, approaches for pupils of all mathematical abilities, particularly the underreported average ability set. The research found that setting and mixed ability grouping have similar effects upon pupils' mathematical attainment. The qualitative data offered an understanding of how setting and mixed ability grouping affect pupils' behaviors, perspectives, and thinking, which subsequently impact their mathematical perception. Chancellor, I present to you Sinead Burns Cameron. Stephen Newport. Title of thesis, Assessing the Unaccessible, the Development of Pages, PMLD Assessment Guide for Education Settings, a novel PMLD assessment tool to aid education practitioners in assessing non-academic development. Primary Supervisor, Professor David Bolt. This thesis revolved around the assessment of pupils labeled as having profound multiple learning difficulties or PMLD. Initially, both currently available assessment systems and the ideological concerns which underpin them were examined and critiqued, largely due to the way in which they tie into capitalism and into the formation of productive workers. This exploration allowed a novel, flexible system to be developed. This was then trialed and refined through a series of focus groups and interviews, leading to the development of pages, the PMLD Assessment Guide for Education Settings, an alternative pupil-centered assessment tool for use in PMLT education settings. Chancellor, I present to you Stephen Newport. S.J. Patterson Craven. Title of thesis, Explorations of Teacher Agency within a Contested Environment. What does teacher agency look like in the context of RE-NQTS, or National Qualified Teachers? Primary Supervisor, Dr. Ross Stewart Buttle. Teachers exercise their agency when they act or teach in a way which reflects their personal values and ideas about education. Accordingly, this thesis explored the extent to which newly qualified religious education, or RE, teachers were teaching in a way which reflected their deeply held values about RE and, more importantly, education. The research suggests that RE teachers at the outset of their careers are heavily influenced by their own experiences as RE pupils, and that greater consideration should be given to these experiences when considering their teacher agency ecology. The work further suggests that there is a relationship between teacher agency and Foucault's notion of truth-telling, and that initial teacher training is well placed to make a positive contribution to the development of teacher agency amongst those at the start of their careers. Chancellor, I present to you S.J. Patterson Craven.
Chancellor, in the name of the Senate, I present to you for admission to the master's degree in this university the following candidates.
By virtue of the authority invested in me, I admit them to the master's degree in this university.
Dozie Monemi, John Neat, Joseph Ola, Latifa Rochester, Lauren Cronshaw, Sharon Lally, Cheryl Patterson, Jenny Jones, Shelley Cannon, Anna Hindle, Lewis Rothwell, Mevish Iqbal, Natalie Gibson, Anne Parker, Fiona Tormey, Tiz Mock, Kerry Chaplin, Danielle Critchley, Sarah Mather, Maria Ahmed, Laura Fernhead, Isabella Henney, Rhiannon Wayne, Chioma Ohajiru, Bethany Bates, Claire Shaw, Sarah Barmby, Dominic Cooper, Gillian Shaw, Lauren Monteiro de Souza, Abigail Garrett, Abigail Garrett, David Hogg, Anne-Marie Andrews, Matthew Carlin, Maureen Davidson, Cynthia Dio Echu, Mariam Dita, Amanda Higino Massa Rentero, Melissa Hughes, Nia Ikaria, Elizabeth Merry, Anna Montgomery, Carla Mari Morris, Lisa Marie Murphy, Stephen Reynolds, Maria Shu, Lisa Gardner, Stella Joseph, Samuel Bailey, Samantha Rotherham, Christian Guindo Yeyos, Melissa Waddington, Sarah McGowan, Ashley Smith, Kelly Wilkinson, Joseph Scully, Joan Barnett, Stephanie Karubia, Chancellor, I make application to you to award the degrees listed to those candidates who have not been presented in person, but whose names appear in the programme, and who have indicated that they wish their degree to be awarded in their absence. I certify that they are worthy to receive those degrees, and I stand as proxy for them.
I admit them to those degrees, and I accept you as proxy. I declare closed this congregation of the university. All those who can, please stand. The final blessing. Gratia Domini nostri Jesu Christi, et caritas Dei, et communicatio Sancti Spiritus, sit semper cum omnibus nobis. Amen.